Yeah, I'm Father Hoelscher. I'm at the High School of St. Thomas More currently. Been there for 4 years, 4 years of priesthood, all spent at the high school, which was God's great joke because I have zero teaching background at all. And I was sent straight to the high school to teach. What I want to talk about tonight, which is great, it's twofold, right? You always give a title in a talk that is also like you're out, right? So kind of the title of this talk is Uselessness. And so at the end of the day, if you're like, wow, that was really useless, at least the beer's cold and the food's good, right? So we'll get there. I love the outdoors. I love being outdoor. And 2 years ago, I don't know, I got this brain hair idea, right? I needed to go to Colorado because there's only one place that's flatter than Champaign, Illinois. I don't know if you know this. It's Amarillo, Texas, where I grew up. Very flat. Nothing is there. So I said, I got to get to the mountains. The mountains have always been, for me, something that just like rejuvenates me. So I started calling priest buddies, and they're like, well, you want to take your vacation and go hike through the mountains? And I said, yes, we can do this, it'll work. And they said, no, I'm going on a cruise. And one by one, they denied me and denied me and denied me. And I thought, all right, I don't know, Lord, I feel like you're asking me to do this, and I think you're asking me to go alone. So I'm going to go alone, which is not something I do. I'm not like spontaneous. I don't just say, hey, pick a spot on the map and I'm going to go there. But I said, Lord, I'm convicted you want me to go. So I fly out. I rent a car, which I forgot the GPS. I work in a high school. I know about technology stuff. So one of our teachers can tell us, like, I don't use a lot of technology. I have an antique dumb phone sitting over there. I forgot GPS. And now I'm in Denver, Colorado with nothing. And I got to figure out how to get into the mountains at this place where I'm going. And it was quite the adventure. It was fun. So I get out there. I'm in the mountains. Life is beautiful. I'm hiking in the mountains. I get 11,000 feet up. And that first night comes. And so I get my tent all set up. And I'm laying there. And every single noise I hear, I'm convinced is a bear. It's going to eat me, right? And at some point, I had this, like, because I was shaking. Any flap of anything, I'm like shaking, like I'm going to die. And what a waste of my priesthood to be eaten by a bear in Colorado because I was too stubborn and prideful to go on a cruise. And I don't know if I'll ever go on a cruise. Nothing against cruises, but I just wasn't going to go. And in that moment, I realized, okay, God, in a very real way, right? A very radical way, my life is in your hands or a bear's paws. And I hope it's in your hands. There's nothing I can do. If a bear comes in the tent, there's nothing I can do to get this bear out. I have no training for bear defense at all. And in that moment, I had this great, like, peace. That God, either my life is in your hands or it's not. Either you're in control or you're not. And I'm going to say you are. And I ended up sleeping pretty well that night. It was a good night. Got up the next morning. I had my game plan going right. I didn't get eaten by a bear. Life was good. First thing I was going to do, I wanted to say Mass at sunrise on the mountain. That was like just burning in my heart a desire. So I set up Mass. The sun's coming up. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I'm reading the Gospel. It's from the Gospel of Mark, this, calming the storm at sea. And as I'm reading this, there's just an intense amount of like rustling coming through the trees. And instantly I think, it's a bear. I'm going to die. At least I'll have a stole on when they like find part of my arm, like they'll know that I was at one point a priest. And as I'm like, I put down the gospel because I decide like of course I'm going to defend a bear, right? I'm going to somehow beat this. So I put the gospel down and I turn around. I'm just waiting for this bear to come through. And it turns out to be like a 20-year-old and, these two 20-year-olds in all pink. And they're climbing up to take a picture of the sunrise. And I had to laugh at myself, and I said, wow, like, okay, good. Yeah, that's right, Lord, I trust you. I trust you, God. And I turn around, and I pick up the gospel for Mark, right? The calming of the storm at sea. And right where I left off, the very next verse is, you of little faith. And I had to laugh at myself and say, okay, God, I get it. A bear's not going to eat me this time. I'll be okay. But it was amazing. I found that for me, the wilderness has been a great area to regroup with the Lord. And I think some of that is because in the wilderness, there's not a lot to do, right? Like even if you have your game plan, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this with my tent, I'm going to be packed up at this time, I'm going to hike this many miles. At the end of the day, you set up your tent, and then you just sit. And it's beautiful. And it's amazing. There's nothing to do when you're out in the wilderness. And I think that's some of the reason why it appeals to me so much, why it's like a regroup. I know there's some teachers around here, some teachers in the house. Teaching seems to be all about doing. I wish that I could like recraft teaching in the United States. Because once you get finished with your lesson plan, you've got to post your lesson plan. Then you got to write a test, and you got to give a test, and you got to grade a test. And everybody wants that done within like 20 minutes of class time. You have to have it online, or teachers, or parents actually, parents are really upset. How come this isn't posted yet? My kid can't get into Harvard if it's not posted instantly. So you fight this temptation to do. And you get into the wilderness, and there's nothing to do but to be. To simply be, to enjoy life, to say, all right, Lord, I'm going to listen to the breeze go through. I'm going to pray the rustling is not a bear. I'm going to enter in, right? I did have a pretty surreal moose encounter, but that's for another story. Moose, by the way, don't be scared of black bears. Black bears are more scared of you. Moose, be scared of moose. There are more human moose encounters in the United States than human bear. Moose know they're big, and they'll come at you. Bears know they're kind of small, and they try to flee. So watch out for the moose. The moose are the dangerous one. That's a pro tip, no charge. All right? Watch out for the moose. But anyway, so there's nothing to do in the wilderness, right? And I think in our world, teaching in high school, I've seen this. I've witnessed it in my younger siblings, even in myself, that there's this great temptation in our life to be useful. This utility, right? I have value and I have meaning because I'm doing. For the high schools, it's all the time, right? If I have this degree, I have meaning, I'm useful. I can offer this to somebody else. And what starts to happen in our lives is our value, our self-identity becomes so wrapped up in the doing that when that's removed from us, we're uncomfortable. Go to an airport. You can do this test. Go to an airport and watch. The second someone is not doing something, there's not something arresting their attention, they'll pull out their phone. I can't do that. I don't get picture text on my phone. I don't get group text on my phone. It's incredibly limiting and incredibly freeing. So I just watch people, which is kind of creepy, I guess. Not in a creepy way, but in like a, hey, wonder if they want to talk kind of way, which maybe could be creepy too, but no. All right. So watch them. We always have to be doing. When we're uncomfortable, we want to do something. And for us, especially, like I'm figuring most of us, 20s, 30s, kind of that range, the pressure hits. I don't have a career yet. I don't have my own house. Maybe you're sitting there thinking like, gosh, I'm not in a relationship. I had a great conversation with one of our young men today who went through like his first real breakup. And it was beautiful because he started to realize that, wait a minute, yeah, I am putting value in the fact that I have to date a girl for me to have value. Guys go through the same thing, right? It's not just a lady problem. We start to put value in other people and relationships. I'm 24 and I'm not married. All of my friends already have their Ford Transit van with 17 kids, and they got to like get in there. 2 of my sisters do have transit vans. It's like being abducted when you get to the airport. Slide open the door and you get thrown in, and it's kind of a crazy experience. But we start to think that my life has no value because I'm not dating, I'm not married yet, I don't have all the kids. Or I don't have that career, right? My career path, that path they told me in college that I need to plan out, like my 10-year plan hasn't come to fruition. I was 26 years old when I finally said, okay, I'll go to the seminary, Lord, if that's what you want. 26, that's kind of a tough time for a career change. I joke, right? Because my classmate is Father Chase. He retired from professional soccer. I say I retired from youth ministry. Very different retirement parties, very different. But we have this idea like my value is placed in career. My value is placed in a relationship. My value is placed in what I am doing. First question someone will ask you when they meet you. Shoot, I probably asked it Drew. Hadn't seen him in a while. So where are you at? What are you doing? It's ingrained in our culture. What are you doing? But we weren't created to be doers, right? I mean, we do have to do stuff. Like, if you're living at home, it's probably time to like maybe start thinking at least outside of the house a little bit, maybe get a job. Not a bad idea. We do have to do things. We have to function in this life. But we're not created to be doers. We're not made to simply be doing all the time. And I see it in our high schoolers already, the Great Depression and loneliness that creates. because I don't have this job, or I'm not the star on the team, or I'm not an athlete, or I don't do anything in the band. They start to build it up in their heads that they are worthless because they're not doing. And we start to buy into that lie. I'm not being followed. One of my kids said that the other day. I was asking them about their college roommates because I teach seniors. And she was like, I said, do you know your roommate? Yes. Yeah. And she goes, yeah, but I followed her on Twitter and she didn't follow me back. And everyone kind of started laughing. And I said, well, good news is you're going to have more than Twitter over the next 4 years, hopefully. Twitter's not going to define your relationship with your roommate, I hope. Pray God it doesn't, right? We're not about the doing. We're actually about the being. And the more I thought about this and the more I see it with our high schools, like just rest. Just rest. Rest in silence. You want to experience awkwardness, be in silence with somebody else. I recently had a conversation. Someone was really mad at me because they said, you never talk to me. You don't speak. You don't talk. And as I started to really pray on that and say, I wonder where they're getting this vibe, because in my head, we had a really good conversation. I thought wow, that was pretty good. I thought we engaged. And I started to realize our different temperaments, right? Their idea of conversation is a volume of words coming at you, and then a volume of words coming back. I'm introverted and a little bit melancholic. My idea of a conversation is, let's say 2 or 3 important things. I don't want to talk about the green beans. I want to talk about something with depth, and then we'll move on. And their inability to be in silence, to sit in silence, I realized, wow, that's a tough cross to bear. They can't sit in silence. That they can't just be. We can't just remain there. I have 23 nieces and nephews, and only 3 sisters. So fertility is kind of like the common cold in my family. One sister announces she's expecting, the next one is going to get it the next week. It just happens in our house. So 23 nieces and nephews, right? And I love my nieces. They all have such beautiful personalities, and they have taught me so much. So when I was in seminary, I went back to Amarillo to visit my folks. My nieces and nephews are there. The 2 older ones for some of the Epiphany peeps, it was Philip and Julia's 2 older boys. And they were probably around I think they were 5 and 4 years old, Paul, Thomas, and Avery. And I'd get up in the morning, and I would try to pray in the morning, but as soon as I was up, they would be up. And it's great and it's wonderful, but they would follow me everywhere. And so there's one morning where we went outside, so they're kind of following me outside, and I thought, all right, it's time to get ready for the day. So I go into the bathroom, and there they are, right at my hips. And I stopped, and I turned around, and I said, guys, I'm just putting in my contacts. I'm not doing anything. I'm just putting in my contacts. And Paul Thomas, at 5 years old, looked at me and with just absolute pure child innocence. He goes, we don't want to do anything. We just want to be by you. And I grabbed stools, and I was like, you be right here. You be right here by me. That's amazing. And we have, the reality is that is how God engages us. God does not look at us and say, hey, I want to do something really fun with you today. I want to do some evangelization with you today. Yes, he calls us into those moments. But first and foremost, he says, I want to be by you. I want to be with you. I created you to be with me. And what a beautiful and amazing gift and realization that is for a world that tells us you have to be useful. You've got to speak multiple languages. You've got to be able to multitask all at once. And you need a phone that's going to do this all for you and keep you totally distracted from the person that's in front of you. I kid you not. I was told in the seminary when I said, I am not going to have a smartphone as a priest. Those days might be waning because the companies are now making you get them. But I said, I'm not going to have a smartphone as a priest. And the guys were like, you can't do that. You would not be efficient. You wouldn't have an efficient priesthood. And then one day I finally just got really mad and I said, I'm not created for efficiency. Clearly, because I'm pretty slothful and lazy. But I'm created for relationship. I'm not created. My value doesn't become in if I can reply to emails or not. How quickly I can respond to people's whatever it is. Which the teachers will tell you I don't do very well anyway to emails. Which is okay. Because you know what? No one's died in 4 years that I've been to the high school. Because I didn't respond to an email. Life has gone on. So sometimes I think we need that help to regroup a little bit, right? We're not created for the doing. We're created for the being. My nephews taught me that at 5 and 4. kids instinctually get that. It's not until we get older and smart, right? It's not until we get older and wise that we say, oh, I have to do. And I would posit that the greatest proof of this, the greatest truth of this, that I'm not created to do. Again, I'm not advocating for not doing anything ever. We got to work, right? You got to eat. Let those who work eat. That's true. But that's not my value. Is in the manner in which our God desires and has chosen to be present with us on earth for until the end of the earth. How did he do that? If you're the creator of everything, if you made everything and you can make anything out of nothing, and you desire that your people, your children, could have your physical presence with them for the rest of the world, I don't think that I would choose to reveal myself in what looks like bread that sits in a tabernacle inside a church. If you had to describe something that's more worldly useless, that has no real value or meaning in the world, it doesn't even taste good, I would say the Eucharist. That our God desires to reside in us in such a way that the world looks at that and says it's useless. It doesn't do anything. There's nothing that happens. It doesn't taste good. You just put it, and it just sits there until we come back. That our God waits for us to come to him. And I think what he's convicting us, what he desires to do in our hearts, is to remind us of that beautiful, beautiful gift. We're not created to do. We're created to be. And if he can simply be in the form of bread, in the tabernacles around the world, and in our monstrances, and wait for us to adore him, then maybe he's convicting me that my self-worth comes in the being and the fact that I am one with him, and that I can come to him. There's a beautiful gift in that. The reason I'm standing here today, well, there's many reasons, but one of the main reasons why I'm a priest. I had a brilliant pastor who hired me, because he hired me at 23, and he said, you're kind of dumb, you're young, and you're going to lead high schoolers to the Lord. That means you need to have some sort of game plan. So one, you're going to have a spiritual director. Two, you're going to do adoration. And it was convenient because we were starting an adoration chapel at the church. And he said, everyone on staff will have this, to take a holy hour. And he said, because you're the youngest on staff, you're going to take 3 to 4 a.m. on Thursday mornings. And I said, great, because I can maybe make it through the rosary. I've never prayed for more than really 20 minutes in my life at that point. What do you do for an hour? Again, what do you do? That was all I could think of. What do you do? And I said, you know what, God, you created me to sleep from 3 to 4 a.m. So if I'm asleep in the adoration chapel 3 to 4 a.m., well, guess what? I'm doing what you created me to do. So you can't be mad. I thought it was a brilliant plan until I got there. And it was the most beautifully uncomfortable hour of my life every single week. Because I would sit there and I would try my best. And that chapel was is what usually happens, right? We say, okay, we want an adoration chapel. We don't really have the space. What do? We take a closet. We paint the walls. We put in some nice little chairs, redo the carpet, and there we go. And so this adoration chapel was what was it, four chairs wide maybe? Maybe 4 chairs wide. You can't get away from Jesus when you're in that little bitty room. There's nowhere to go. I would try to turn sideways. He was still looking at me. Short from turning around, there was nothing I could do. He was there. And so I would just sit there. Usually I'd pray a rosary. That's 15 minutes, right? Good. I'd pray for the needs of the teens. Good. I got 30 minutes to fill still. What do I do? And in that beautiful, wonderful time of sitting and looking at the Lord, I realized that my life didn't rest upon what I did. That my value wasn't what God was. He wasn't looking at me saying, I wish you would do this tomorrow and that tomorrow, and why didn't you do this today? He was looking at me saying, why can't you receive my love? Because if you receive my love, that's going to motivate your life forever. And it was in that chapel I heard, it's going to be in our Gospels, my absolute favorite scripture verse, John 15:16. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you to go and bear fruit. And it was in that. Now, it wasn't like overnight, right? It took almost 3 full years for me to like have that beat into my skull of that I'm not made to do, I'm made to be, and I'm made to be with you, Lord. That I finally had the courage to say, all right, wherever you are, Lord, I want to be where you are. And it was then in that moment that I realized everything that defined me, everything that I thought made me me, the good parts God took, and he said, yeah, I'm going to make these better. But what actually made me me was my relationship with him. And then I had the courage to say, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And since then, he's now revealed to me like I could not imagine being happier. It's just great. So if you go through breakup, you're in a breakup, you're worried about breakup, I told the high schooler today, I said, listen, convince yourself. As great as, your sophomore girlfriend, which we've all been there, so we can't make too much fun of him because we all probably had a sophomore breakup that ended our world. But I said, as great as she is, imagine how happy she makes you, and if she's not the one, or he's not the one, imagine how much happier the one is going to actually make you. Or if you're not called to marriage, imagine how much happier you'll be. We can't even fathom it. I was pretty happy as a high school youth minister, not going to lie. Really happy. I had a house, had my dog, had my old truck. Life was good. I couldn't imagine and fathom how joyful and wonderful it is to be a priest. There's a lot of doing in the priesthood. There's a lot. There's a lot that people want us to do. But there's also a lot of beautiful being. And to be one who gets to actually bring God to earth is unspeakable. So as we fight those temptations, as the world tells us, what's your career? Why don't you have your 5-year career plan? Why haven't you done this yet? Why haven't you done that yet? Are you going to go get another degree? Why aren't you married yet? Why don't you have kids? All these different things that the world throws at us. Our response is, I wasn't created to do. I was created to be. And the more that we just be by the Lord, we just be with the Lord, he'll figure it out. He's God. It's his job title. We mess up, he fixes it. Once we realize that, it makes life a lot easier. So I encourage us, fight the urge, fight the temptation, fight that voice that says, I have to be useful. And if I'm not useful, I have no value. Because our value doesn't come from what we do, it comes from who we are. And we're all the children of God. So as we head out this evening or wherever we're going, I encourage you, swing by Adoration Chapels. It will change your life forever. As our rector said in the seminary, fall in love with him and it will change everything. I promise you. If you're called to marriage, God already has the perfect spouse picked out for you. Ask him. He'll reveal them. He'll bring them to you. If you're called to the priesthood, stop fighting it. It's amazing. Go for it. Go into it. Even if you got to retire from professional soccer, go for it. It's totally, totally worth it. So thank you for letting me share with you this evening. That's all I got. We're going to keep it short and brief. So if it was useless, well, guess what? We're kind of created to simply be with each other and enjoy beer. So enjoy your beer. And thank you for letting me share with you this evening. God bless.